Joining us now, our Wednesday regular TSN Hockey Insider from the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast, Mr. Darren Dreger. It seems like every week I watch Insider Trading and you're talking on the Vancouver Canucks. Dreg, you're like a Canucks beat reporter.
Yeah,
at this stage.
It's great. I actually quite like it. It's amazing.
Yeah. Well, you know, I joined Pierre LeBrun and Ryan Rashog on the Got Your Back podcast earlier today, and we got talking about the variety of things that we have to do as insiders and, you know, how challenging it can be. I didn't go to the GM meetings because we had Pierre and Chris Johnson there yesterday, and I was doing a regional game last night. But, you know, when you're weighing in and you're asking Pierre Dorian or Patrick Allvin or any manager the tough questions about their coaching, are they going to do this, are they going to do that? You know, it takes a certain level of skin as a journalist to be able to do that. Where it gets a little weary is constantly just kind of throwing the crumbs at the pigeons, you know, because you know, every day there's at least a modest update on what's going on with the Vancouver Canucks. And look, you know, I have no skin in this game. I don't, it doesn't matter to me if Bruce Boudreau is coaching the Canucks a day from now, a month from now, a year from now. I happen to like Bruce. Bruce is a nice guy. So you have to put all that aside and then just cover the story. And the story is that every day goes by. They won last night. Okay, a nice win against the Buffalo Sabres. But does that change my view of what I reported yesterday in the sense that the Canucks are going to have to make a coaching change sooner rather than later? Hasn't changed my position. And it feels like every day there's a little movement. That's valued information. I'm sure Canucks fans are interested.
No team that wins one every 3 games is headed in the right direction. Like, no team loses out the rest of the way. They're going to win games. So that shouldn't necessarily guide the hand of Canuck management, should it, on whether or not they're going to fire the coach. And again, this is not any of us cheering it on. It's just, if you're going to do it, do it. That's sort of what a lot of people have in mind here.
Yeah, and look, and I've said this all along since the beginning of my time as an insider, when you're firing coaches or general managers, you better make sure that whomever is coming in to replace those individuals is an upgrade, or you feel like this person is going to shift the direction of the team. I don't have that keen sense right now with what's going on in Vancouver, with all due respect. I mean, Rick Tocchet has been speculated on, right? I think Tocchet is a good coach. I remember when he became a free agent coach a couple of years ago, saying out loud, well, the most coveted unrestricted free agent isn't a player. It's going to be Rick Tocchet. And, you know, he went on this grand tour and interviewed here and interviewed there and did all these things. But it just wasn't right for him personally. And I still feel strongly about Tocchet as a candidate. However, and this is a full stop on all this, you know, this isn't a one-way negotiation. I believe Vancouver is interested in Rick Tocchet as a top candidate, but is Tocchet the right fit for this group? And I don't even know that management in Vancouver knows that just yet, because truthfully, they don't even know what direction the team is going. You know, last week before, again, one Canucks update kind of lends itself to the other for me. I talked about how the team is trying to be protective of the direction, and that includes a better standing in the draft in June, right? So you don't want to act too quickly and then all of a sudden have a turnaround that can almost be a fake turnaround. And maybe that's a little bit of what last year's Boudreau bump was, right? I mean, really it was Thatcher Demko standing on his head game after game after game, and that's not happening now. So in a perfect world, I think the Canucks would hang on to Bruce for a while longer, get into the new year, you know, allow Tocchet or whomever the candidate of choice is to then take hold and start to mold the new direction of the team without doing damage to the draft. But first of all, if Tocchet is the guy, both sides have to determine whether he's a fit. And here's a big what if. Mm-hmm. What if he likes his job at TNT on TV and sleeping in his own bed 3-4 nights a week and making big dollars doing national television and not having any of the stresses of being an NHL head coach?
Undefeated, right?
As you know, Darren, you never lose a game in media.
Never lose a game. No.
Highs maybe aren't quite as high, but you certainly know the lows aren't as low. you reported yesterday on Insider Trade. All of that said, with the case for keeping Bruce, you reported on Insider Trading yesterday that the longer they wait, maybe there is a bigger effect on players. I'm just wondering if you could expand on that. They're worried about Bruce not using some guys, or some guys struggling under Bruce, and thus the trade value is hampered. Is that the correct interpretation on that score?
It is, Matt, and it's really a two-headed monster. You've got the younger players who are still in the development phase of their career. They're not able to shoulder the load of carrying an organization just yet, and they need to be played in meaningful situations. So if either their confidence starts to erode because they're maybe not getting power play time, or they're not being used correctly, or worse, if I look at Andrei Kuzmenko, who was recently a scratch, that's a tough one for some of these guys to have to deal with. So you've got that side of it. And then you've got a veteran coach here who historically, and he's not alone in this department, when they can sense that things are starting to pull apart, and it doesn't really matter where you're at in your contract there. I mean, when you're struggling to find some consistency out of your team, what do? Well, you shorten your bench, right? And you start leaning on the 6, the 8, maybe the 10 players that you believe as a head coach are going to lead by example, take you in the direction you need to do. And who knows, maybe in Boudreau's case, try and save his job for the rest of the year. But that does not encourage a team concept. And frankly, I get the sense that that's what Vancouver is all about right now, from ownership down. The message from ownership is fix it. And now that's on management to fix it. But part of the fix isn't just getting rid of a coach and bringing in somebody else. That's making sure that the team is coached the right way, and developing that philosophy of team first is top priority. And there's a sense that it might not be right now.
How about just player happiness, Dregs? I just wonder about the effect of, and we hear the draft stock, theory floated out there a lot from fans too, that, hey, just let them lose, get closer to the bottom, get closer to Connor Bedard. But how's that going to sit with the star players? Never mind their playing time, even if they're being played normally. Like Pettersson really hasn't seen an impact on his playing time per se.
No,
but he sees the loss column. How do you think Jim Rutherford is calculating, and Patrick Allvin are calculating that into this whole figure here as to whether or not these players will be kept happy?
To a degree. And it's less about individual or selfish happiness and creating that environment that we just talked about, right? Mm-hmm. Where I give credit to the players. They're at least saying the right things, and for the most part doing the right things. Like I listened to JT Miller last week going into Toronto, and he was genuinely excited. And I think the team was genuinely excited about going into Toronto and playing the Maple Leafs on a Saturday night. So, there's an experienced guy with a long-term contract, so he doesn't have much to worry about other than wins or losses. But to quote John Tortorella, it sucks, right? And we're not talking about the Philly forecheck. We're talking about losing. Losing sucks. And it doesn't matter whether you're new to the league or you're a guy with a big contract like JT Miller. You want to win. The guys that might be in a better position, Bo Horvat. I'm telling you, it doesn't seem that the burden of losing and having to talk about Bruce Boudreau or what's going on or not going on with the Vancouver Canucks is having a negative impact on his game. And I'm more curious about when Horvat gets to the point where he just says, I'm just not talking about my contract anymore. But I'm not saying media-wise. That's the message from my agent to Canucks management. You guys have had to this point to get something done. You made your decisions for whatever reason. I'm an unrestricted free agent. I'm looking after myself. I'm going to play like the leader that I am, but that's the direction I would prefer to go in. I don't know that he's done that yet, but it makes sense that at some point they get there.
What's your gut tell you on that situation? Is he a Canuck at the end of the year?
Probably not. That's my gut. I don't like giving kind of soft answers like that, Blake. Yeah, probably not. But then you get into the the complexity and the dynamics of what a trade like that could look like, right? If you're trading him as a pure rental, you're not getting the full return. And then the old sign and trade or trade and sign. I mean, how often does that happen? And the reason it doesn't happen very often is because those players want to manage their environment, mostly from a family standpoint, right? How can you be sure, unless you're getting traded to the perfect location before the trade deadline or on the trade deadline, that your family is going to be happy there for the next 7 or 8 years? But just based on where we're at today with the Vancouver Canucks, it feels unlikely that Horvat is with the team.
Are you hearing anything on Boeser?
No, nothing. It's actually been very quiet there. Aside from coaching and some of the things that we know about, right? Like we know that Vancouver remains in that queue for a defenseman, and I'm sure Patrick Galvin is fielding calls, taking calls. You know, the benefit, one of the many benefits of attending Hall of Fame again in a healthier world is that those general managers had an opportunity to get face to face. So some of the conversations that you've extended via text message or, a 2-minute phone call, can be elaborated on and maybe head in a different direction when you're actually in the same room or you're having face-to-face conversations. So I would bet that Alvin and the Vancouver Canucks were fairly popular this past weekend.